For me, I mean, it's just great tunes, and I got thinking about it, like, well, is there a connection, or is it just me picking tunes that I like? And the more I thought about it, it was really, I can't believe I'm saying this, but it was 25 years ago that my first CD came out with Ray Brown. It's amazing what happens when you're 4 years old working with Ray Brown, right?
Welcome to episode 63 of the Bass Shed podcast. My name is Ryan Roberts. LemurMusic.com. Everything you need for the double bass can be found at LemurMusic.com. Basses, bows, strings, sheet music, accessories, pickups, preamps, amps, bags, cases, everything you need for the double bass. LemurMusic.com. TsunamiCables.com, hands down my favorite cables on the market. You can listen to my talk with the owner of Tsunami Cables, Keith Sticks, on episode 51 of the Bass Shed podcast. We talk about the cable company. We also talk about the V15 preamp released by Tsunami. You can use the promo code TheBassShed, all one word, at Tsunami Cables for 10% off. TsunamiCables.com. Trickfish Amplifiers, www.trickfishamps.com. I play their dual channel preamp, the Trilobite. It is also an AB box and makes doubling on a gig so efficient, and I can dial in a great sound on both instruments. Click the switch, boom, onto the other bass. It's amazing. Trickfishamps.com. Use promo code TheBassShed, all one word, for 10% off.
News for you.
That's right, everybody. I got some news. The first batch of transcriptions for Funk Volume 1, The Basslines of James Brown, is up at thebasshed.com. I'll be covering the different bassists that played with James Brown and discussing the timeline of who played with him when. The tunes in the first batch that are up are, drumroll please. Thank you, Klaus. The tunes in the first batch are Cold Sweat, The Payback, Superbad, The Boss. That's two different tunes. Superbad, parts 1 and 2. The next song, The Boss, that's from the movie Black Caesar that James Brown did the soundtrack for. And Papa's Got a Brand New Bag. Head to thebasshed.com, click on the tab Collections by Topic. I'll have more info there. For those that are interested in funky bass lines and the music of James Brown, check out episode 58 of the Bass Shed podcast, where I talk with Fred Thomas. Fred was the bassist who was with James Brown the longest and took over after Bootsy Collins. Again, stop by thebasshed.com for more information about my collection of James Brown bassline transcriptions. I know I've also discussed I was simultaneously building a collection of jazz double bass solos. You can find that at thebasshed.com under the same tab, Collections by Topic. In the first batch are my transcriptions of Dave Holland, Eddie Gomez, Jimmy Blanton, Charlie Hayden, Ray Brown, and Oscar Pettiford. Again, basshed.com, Collections by Topic. See you there. Welcome to episode 63, everybody. On this show is double bassist and vocalist Kristin Korb. I first heard Kristin play when I was new to LA. Then I met her in person several years later. She was in town and stopped by a gig I was playing. She knew the jazz vocalist that I was playing with that night, and I believe she knew the guitar player as well. She sat in. She sounded great, of course, but we didn't really have time to do a proper meet or hang or anything. So I'm glad it worked out to have her on the podcast. Kristin has 11 albums out as a band leader. She's also got a cookbook out, which I think is fascinating, a cookbook. I'm not sure what's in the cookbook. I didn't look through the table of contents. I don't know the recipes. Check it out. Maybe you can learn how to make hummus while improving a two-feel. It's a little treasure chest of information, the cookbook. Yeah, don't sleep on the cookbook, folks. Check out the Kristin Korb cookbook. Her latest releases are titled What If and Why Not? Musical releases. Those are not cookbooks. The music releases, the albums, are titled What If and Why Not. The album What If is a 7-song collection of pop tunes that she has arranged. And the album that was released in tandem is titled Why Not. This is also a 7-song collection and focused on jazz standards. Kristin speaks about these recordings in depth. She'll talk about her process in selecting the material and where inspiration comes from when writing the arrangements. Ryan Roberts writing the arrangements. He can say all those words together. I highly recommend checking out the recordings and learning how to talk better. You can visit KristinKorb.com for more information, and I'll have links to her website and Spotify channel at thebasshed.com/podcast/Kristin Korb. Kristin's also going to talk about her time with Ray Brown. Her time studying with Ray Brown and the nuggets of information that Ray passed along to her, and how he imparted these ideas about how to think differently and in a more efficient way, and how she's able to communicate that with students. It was a great time connecting with Kristin. She's absolutely lovely, and it was a really, really fun time. That being said, here it is, folks. Here's my talk with double bassist and vocalist Kristin Korb. Kristin.
Hey, great to see you.
Likewise.
Good.
Can you hear me all right?
Absolutely.
Cool.
Clear as a bell.
Cool. I'd say good morning, but it's early evening, late afternoon over there, right?
It's 4 in the afternoon.
4 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Good for you. I can't remember the last time I had to wake up this early.
We could have gone later.
We could have. No, but this worked. I'm glad it worked out. These are just not LA musician hours.
I know, unless you just stay up all night. I was a little surprised.
I thought about it.
I thought, like, are you on the road? Are you really in LA?
Yeah.
Right now?
Yeah. No, like I caught up on the football games from yesterday, took a nap, and here I am.
Beautiful.
Yeah. No, the first time I heard you play was right when I moved to LA at Shutters with John Prue.
Whoa, that was a long time ago.
Yeah, I think that must have been like late 06, early 07.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I remember being relatively new to Los Angeles, and someone recommended I go check you guys out.
That feels like a lifetime ago.
I bet. How long have you been in Denmark?
10 years now.
10 years. Wow.
Yeah.
That's a big move.
Yes, it was very large on multiple levels, and not just, the physical distance, but
sure,
time zones away from family, like the whole idea. Well, for moving, like every time you move, it's like, okay, who are my people?
Right.
Where's my musical community?
Right.
Who do I want to play with?
Sure.
The benefit of moving in the U.S. is chances are you probably know the names of people you want to, not all the people you want to hang with, because that's part of the discovery process, but you probably had some individuals in mind.
Right. And most likely, if you go to another major music city, you probably know somebody there already.
Yes.
And then they can kind of, grandfather you into the scene a little bit.
Yeah. And
none of that? Did you have that in Denmark?
It was a pretty blank slate. I mean, there was one guitar player that I knew.
Okay.
That I had just played with before, and actually he was really kind in opening some doors for me, Jakob Fischer.
Mm-hmm.
I had played on a cruise with him with a group called Jazz Doggin, and that group is primarily like Dixieland style, really early jazz sorts of things. So it was just standards.
Yeah.
But
did you have to cop the trad thing? You basically have to play like a tuba player.
Yeah, it was a lot of tuba.
Could you? Okay, but could you play like a interesting bass line, or was it just 2-beat, 1-5, stay out of the way style?
I kind of, in that group, I was more sorry about that. Let me turn that off. For me, with that group, I was kind of like the bebop kid.
Okay.
That they brought in. So they knew at some point it was going to be 4 on the floor and pushing.
Yeah.
Luckily, I was with guys, and Jakob loves standards. He doesn't always live in that zone.
Okay.
And fortunately, most of the musicians on that cruise are flexible enough and have enough world experience that they don't just live in that zone.
Right.
So when I did move here, then Jakob put me on gigs where I got to play with a different piano player every night and a different drummer.
Oh, nice.
So then I got a chance to meet some other people.
Cool.
So
Cool.
that was really great.
Yeah, that helped out. And are you still working a lot with those people?
I found my drummer that way.
Okay.
My regular drummer, and then through him, I found my regular piano player, and we've been together for 9 years.
Wow!
As a trio.
Congratulations.
It's really great.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing. The longest I ever had a band together in LA was 5.
Okay, that's still that's a tremendous thing to keep a band together for 5 years in LA.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, it was really. I mean, I always love playing with different people and being a sideman, because then you get all this other information and you get all these other inspirations. So when you come back to your own project, then you can do something different with the group.
That's such a positive and diplomatic way to approach being a sideman, because you can also the other aspect of it is you can easily get kind of dark because you're just like you're out there making a living but playing with people that are not inspiring and maybe can't hang the same way you can on some things. And it's easy to get frustrated with that when you're just doing the freelance sideman thing.
Yeah, but imagine if you were only doing leader gigs and nobody called you as a sideman.
Yeah. Then that gets daunting, right? It all has its drawbacks. It's hilarious. Like it's the nature of it all. Like whatever you're doing, you want to kind of be doing the other thing.
Yeah, I mean, I love a good mix of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I also enjoy within that, whether it's being a sideman, being a band leader, teaching as well. I enjoy doing it when I'm doing it. I'm really present, and I love okay, how can I help this person? How can I see what they need and be able to encourage them and uplift them? But if that was all I did,
right.
I'm not built that way. I need a mix of things
Sure.
One thing inspires the other, which inspires the other.
Yeah, I agree. Do you compose as well?
I do. I'm trying to get back into it again. I have like phases where I like write a lot, and then I have phases where I just get inspired to do arrangements of things like pop tunes or standards or something just kind of comes across my periphery, and then I go, oh, I have to do something like that.
Yeah.
So like last year I did a lot of, pop arrangements of crazy things, like Mary Poppins and Barry Manilow tunes and stuff like that. But now I've my piano player, Magnus Hjort, he's written a few little sketches. And so I want to co-write some things. And I also have a bunch of little sketches of like 3 measures here and 2 pages of possible text or stories, brainstorming things. So now I just have to sit down with it and just kind of flesh it out.
What's the end game there? Are you going to do some kind of mixed media, like music with the people acting this out, or some kind of narration?
I don't know, or I just sing.
Okay.
I don't know. Anything is possible.
That's true. That's true.
I found like trying to perform stuff with multimedia, it's a little hard. For me, it's been much harder to find the venues, and then you need extra people to run all that stuff.
It's a bigger production, right?
It is, and I think it would require a really particular space. It seems like some of those spaces are really open if it's like really out music or really super experimental. But if it's more of kind of like a edutainment sort of a thing, like, and I did the Beyond the Moon project, which is all these lyrics of Johnny Mercer's.
Okay.
Where I did did arrangements of some of his things, but also took some of his texts that were never set to music before and wrote new music for that.
That's a fun project.
Things that were inspired. So what I wanted to do was interject some like things of, finding online things that he had talked about with music or ways he thought about things or his process, and interjecting like video and voice and then kind of segueing. I was so excited about that.
Nice.
And I couldn't find a venue to do it. And so we tried just like in a regular venue to, say play this, but there wasn't room for a screen. So then it was like, just play the voice, and people are looking around going,
Yeah, what's going on here?
What is like, it just,
It's hilarious. So speaking of research, and maybe recording and doing arrangements, your record, What If?
yes.
You have some songs on there that I had never heard of, and I had to look up and kind of track down and do a little dive on to get some context. How did you come across some of these deep cuts that are on that record?
Do you have a track in mind?
I do. I do. The one that I specifically have in mind, I think it was the first one I looked up, it was on the other record. Why Not? That's the one.
Okay.
That had the deep cuts on it. Which, let's talk about this. So we have What If and Why Not. Both albums are 7 tunes long, and What If is the pop songs, and Why Not is the jazz standards. Speak to the titles of that. What If ? Why Not ? Who are the questions proposed to, and where are they coming from?
Well, it was one of those things in, pandemic projects as we have them.
Yeah.
In concert, my whole thought was to do a program that kind of shuffled back and forth.
Okay.
But in a CD project sort of thing, for me, it made more sense. Like, what if I did pop tunes?
Okay.
I mean, it was a pandemic.
This is the first outing of that. This is the first time you recorded pop tunes?
Yeah, in bulk. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I've kind of toyed around with a few things here and there, but this was really the first big dive into that.
Okay.
Getting together with friends that love pop music, appreciate jazz, but are much more into the pop scene, and are like, oh, you need to do this. You should need to do some Rolling Stones. You should do some, or Steely Dan and rework a Steely Dan tune. And it's like, but for me, like, as a singer, the singer part of me has to relate to the story. If I can't...
Yeah, I could hear that on the record.
If I can't relate to the story and I don't feel a connection to that, now the connection might be weird. It doesn't have to be at face value. It could be from another perspective. But if I can't relate to the lyric, I can't do it.
Okay.
I just don't have interest in it. So like for Copacabana, that wasn't naturally one of those that I felt a connection to. But as I started listening to the lyric and really thinking about it, it's like, oh, this is a drama.
I gotta say that's the first time either I've listened to all of the lyrics, like listen to the song long enough to hear it all. But that was the first, listening to your version was the first time I actually heard the story of it. And I began to like the tune more. Same with the first track, which is Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, which I saw that on the track listing, and on quick read, I'm like, that's not even a word. What? And then I had to, okay, I see what's happening. Also, while talking about track 1, Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, that reminded me of Ella's Tisket Tasket.
Okay.
That was kind of a knee-jerk reaction that happened while I was listening to that. Like this kind of playful, almost childlike song that was. It's not a childlike song, but it is.
It's a full-blown child tune. It's
so?
It's Mary Poppins.
I've never seen Mary Poppins.
What?
I know.
Oh my gosh!
I'm outing myself right now.
It's not even the second one. It's not the new one. This is like old school Julie Andrews, Dick Van Dyke.
When was Mary Poppins done? When was it? The 60s? Late 50s?
It was in color.
All right.
But
now we have to learn, like, when did TV go to color?
Yeah, it must have been the 60s, somewhere in there.
I'm guessing 60. Let's look it up. What's your over under? I'm going 63. What do you think?
You know what? I saw it as a kid, so maybe it was early 70s.
Okay. Yeah, but I mean, I just saw E.T., so that doesn't mean like when I see things, it has no relation to when they came out. Hold on, I'm looking this up. When did Mary Poppins come
out? 64.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Okay, I'm not that old. It was remakes, but it was before my time.
That was never in question.
But I mean, I remember seeing it, and well, the whole reason Mary Poppins came up in the first place was there's this venue that I play at on this island in Denmark called Bornholm, and it's the coolest little island in the summer. It's lots of sunshine. This venue, it's almost like our band camp week. They have these artist residences, little apartments, and so like for the last 7 years now. It's for our band. It's like we come and hang out as a band together for a week with the families. So I've watched Magnus and, well, not so much Snort because he's always coming in last minute. Although this year he did come in a day early. But we just hang out and we have a big band dinner. My husband and I cook a huge meal. We eat outside together. The kids are running around. Every year we have a guest artist with us. So we get to, bring in some other texture into the trio. I mean, we can almost see the water from where we're staying. It's,
nice.
You
how
just jump in.
How many nights are you playing there? Are you just 1 or 2 concerts? Or that's amazing.
I mean, last year we did 2 concerts. We did a kid concert in the morning, half an hour. Okay. And we just play, it's adult jazz for kids.
Okay.
And we talk about the instruments, and the grandparents are all there with the kids. And, a lot of these families are on vacation because it's their last blast before going back to school. So it's tons of kids, super, super fun, 30 minutes in and out.
Wow.
We enjoy the day. That's our sound check. So then we know the sound is going to be great because it's an outdoor concert. And then we do the concert at night for the general audience. And the rest of the week, we come early, we stay late. The concert's on a Wednesday.
Okay.
And it's perfect. Like 7:30 at night. And so, you still have time to hang out and have fun after the gig is over. And usually the night before we'll do the big band dinner, and then the kids go to bed, and then we go and rehearse and disturb all the neighbors until they make us stop.
Perfect. So that inspired Mary Poppins?
Well, that's also part of the deal. If we're going to be there every year, she requests a tune.
Okay, the curator of the event?
Yeah, and the first year, she said anything from Mary Poppins.
Okay.
And I wrote it down and promptly forgot about it. And then a week before the gig, my husband was like, what's this in the calendar about Bornholm and Mary Poppins?
Yeah.
And I went, oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh no. So I went through, I went onto YouTube and I was looking up everything, a spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down.
Sure.
No. Chim chim cheree. I don't think so. And then I was looking at supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, and the melody itself is so da 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 da. It's just so constant. There's so little variation.
Right.
And now you'll have to go look up the video so you can see Dick Van Dyke and Julie Andrews dancing with cartoon penguins.
I feel like I can somehow. I know I've seen that, but I've just never seen the whole.
The movie.
Yeah, and at a certain point in life, I've made it this far. I don't know if I need to really chime into Mary Poppins.
Probably not.
Other things to do.
But it was fun to arrange and to try to bring meaning into something that I wasn't naturally thinking of.
Right, that's not a typical go-to is to pull from Mary Poppins.
No. But if you can do something cool with it and something fun that isn't so far out, like people can still recognize the tune.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But pull it into another place where people go, what?
Yeah.
I love doing that.
Yeah. Also on that record, What If, the tune, The Power of Love. Whose song is that?
Huey Lewis and the News.
That's what I thought.
1985.
Okay.
It was like, Back to the Future. I mean, this is my high school years now.
That's it.
So,
I couldn't place it. I knew it from somewhere. I know Huey's bass player. He's been on the podcast. Honestly, I'm not a huge Huey fan, but I know that song from Back to the Future, which I love.
In the 80s, oh my gosh, mid 80s in high school, when I was in choir, that was like all the Pops concerts were Huey Lewis News.
Oh, really?
In the News tunes, yeah. That was just totally, and I would make fun of Pops concerts in general because I was a little jazz nerd at the time, and so there's supposed to be choreography and stuff, and I'd be like, power of love, curious thing, and I was dancing around and just making fun of it, and then the choir director made me do the choreography. I was like, no.
That backfired.
No. That backfired. Oh, big time.
Yeah.
So for me, it brought back some of that. And also thinking about, at the time when I started working on that, it was springtime and I was, walking out in the forest because what else are you going to do in the middle of a pandemic?
Right.
And thinking about, hearing about like my niece and nephew that were trying to finish school and, final concerts of the year, friends of mine that teach, and there were no concerts.
Yeah.
They couldn't do anything. And I
Yeah.
was thinking about like, oh, man, I remember when I was in high school and we did that Huey Lewis thing. And then just in walking through the forest, all of a sudden I was like, power of love. It's
Yeah.
a curious thing. I was like, oh.
Ding, ding, ding. Light bulb. Nice.
So that's where that came from.
Okay. I loved the version of Don't Let Me Be Lonely Tonight. I'm a huge James Taylor fan.
That arrangement is so brilliant. It's Otmaro Ruiz. And
Okay.
that's the only one I asked him if it would be okay if I did it because he originally did that for a project with for Aron Serfati.
Ah, yeah. Love Aron. Yeah.
He's amazing.
Sweetheart. Yeah.
So Otmaro had done that arrangement and
Okay.
I just love it so much. And I played it once with Aron and Otmaro at a gig we did. I was visiting and it happened to coincide with a gig that Aron was playing at Santa Monica College.
Mhm.
And so he had called me in to play bass and then sing that song.
Cool. I
that
think specifically on that song, your version really creates this visual element to it. Like it's a really delicate song, I think, and your version really hits on that and it kind of brings a lot of the vulnerability of the lyrics out. It kind of creates this mood with like long sheer curtains and candles and like this dramatic setting. It's an amazing version. Well done.
Thank you.
I thought that was brilliant. Because anytime there's a song that I personally like and I see that that's a pop tune that a jazz player will do, and I've done this as a jazz player, I have taken a pop tune and completely flipped it upside down. But I'm always a little standoffish, like, all right, what are we gonna do here? What's gonna happen? Are you gonna put a bunch of changes and hits in it and make it something it's not and lose the song or not? Your version, I think, went really deep inside the actual content of the tune and pulled the tune out instead of putting a bunch of stuff on top. I thought that was brilliant.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Well, I think James Taylor, his writing is so brilliant. There's a simplicity to it,
Yeah.
but it is not easy.
Yeah. And he's got a lot of imagery, I think, already built into his lyrics, but the vibe you created with the band created that the same way. I've listened to his version who knows how many times, and I've never had that strong of a visual attached to it.
Oh, thank you.
So I thought that was great.
Well,
Well
and I
done.
think part of it too is, having that relationship with the guys in my
Sure.
band. We really trust each other. We're family.
Mm-hmm.
So, being able to, and those guys, Snore and Magnus, they love playing the more delicate, the better.
Yeah.
And it's not like they love hitting hard too, but boy, man, if they get a chance to just kind of suspend the sound and get that translucence to
Yeah.
it, they
There's a
live
lot of
for
that all over. There's that kind of texture and mood all over the record. Both of them, actually, the pop tracks and the jazz. It's brilliant. And it's so delicate and so poignant, but it's so also engaging because you're like, okay, what's going to happen next? And you can feel how kind of fragile it all is.
Thank you.
I think it's amazing. When recording records, do you record bass and voice separately?
Yes.
You do.
I like playing if we did like a live concert thing, it would be everything all at once.
Mm-hmm.
But in the studio, because there's so much stuff that you want to try and I don't want to waste the guys' time.
Sure.
And so for me, if we can do the rhythm tracks together.
Yeah.
And hopefully we've rehearsed and worked on or performed the material enough, they know where I'm going to go with something vocally.
Sure. Do you bring in like a scratch vocal?
Nope.
Oh, okay, you just play the tune.
We just play. We talk about like where things are going to go, or if somebody's, if we do like 3 takes, it may be that Magnus takes an extra chorus on one for a solo just because it feels great.
Yeah.
So then I can pick from those different textures of which, maybe the tempos will be different in 3 different versions.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll see what fits the lyric best
Okay.
with where I'm feeling it.
Yeah.
And then vocally I can come in and
then you do the
and lay
vocals,
down stuff. But it's also a lot easier to change mixes, and to balance things for my husband did the mixing for this project.
Okay.
But if I'm playing and singing at the same time, and with the double disc, we did it all in the living room.
Wow.
So there was loads of bleed. And if you have a voice in there too, and you want to fix something or change a phrase, or then you have to either record. Well, you just have to record everything over because there's too much bleed in all the microphones.
Yeah, exactly.
So in this situation, it was a lot better to keep that vibe of, we haven't been able to play together for a long time, and here we are, and all that energy, and then in the living room, and we've got baffles up and stuff. So we could change a few things with the mixer, balance.
Mm-hmm. Is the living room set up at all to be a kind of creative or recording space, or were you just like moving couches and pushing end tables away and like
we move stuff
mic
all over
stands
the
with
place.
blankets and do it kind of?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we've got some sound foam, probably 1.5 inch thick.
Yeah, the panels.
Some panels.
Yeah.
That we have. Well, this is our studio. My husband does all the mixing in here. We've got air mattresses on the back wall to absorb the, some of that low end. So, we've been known to, bring as much stuff in. We've got the room where the grand piano is. We've got a really nice piano. So everything kind of fits in around that. We move the couches we need to for that. But it's, wood floors, hard surfaces. We've set up a couple of curtains. Okay. Just to kind of make the room a little smaller. Sure. And then with the baffles and things like that. It's a mess in the house. And then you got the cables and the snake and everything coming back into the mixing room, and then we're yelling at each other because there's no headphones. We're going acoustic.
Okay.
We just go. So then when I'm doing the vocals. Is your bass
amplified at all, or are you just playing acoustically?
I'm just playing acoustic.
Okay.
And we just have a couple of microphones up.
Yeah. Okay.
Around the bridge and fingerboard sometimes.
Right.
I'm trying to think if we've done a line out. We've plugged in before into an amp and then did a line out from that, or a DI out from the bass.
Just for an option, like a mix option?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But otherwise it's all acoustic.
Okay.
But we've got really good microphones.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, what's your microphone?
DPA.
Okay.
My husband started the company, so
really,
I'm biased. Actually, he's the biased one. He picks the microphones and places them and does all that.
Wow, those are amazing mics. Do you use one as a pickup live also then?
Yeah, I have a 4099 that I use, but typically what we do is I'll plug into an amp as like a regular monitor, into an amplifier for our stage, and then the 4099 goes out to the house. Okay. So that way, even in a smaller venue, I really barely use, because the guys are so sensitive on stage. It's just a little bit so I can hear the bass from behind me, and then I have a TC Helicon voice monitor so I can hear my voice coming up.
Okay, is that a little kind of hotspot that goes on a mic stand?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it goes on a mic stand. Sometimes it's the one I'm singing on. We've been trying to play around with it a little bit, like we put it on a separate one on the side. So that way, it just takes away the barrier.
Sure.
Between me and an nines, because otherwise, if the stage is up a little bit, and then there's that monitor right in front of me, people are like, I can't see your fingers, or it's bad enough with a microphone in my face.
Of the audience. Yeah.
Yeah. So if we can set it off to the side, that's been fun as long as space allows. It's nice to have that as an option.
And then what pickup are you using on your bass?
I have on my travel bass, I have a David Gage Realist.
Okay.
And then I have on my home bass, my Morelli, it's a David Gage Lifeline.
Which one is that?
It goes in the adjuster. I used to have a full circle, and then this is, and then my full circle. I had a couple different full circles, and they just died early.
Yeah.
But because I had the adjusters in, then it's almost like it goes between the adjuster and the bridge.
Okay.
It's like a little kind of U-clip
Yeah.
that goes in. And it was only because I don't know how to change my own strings, unfortunately. So like the idea of putting a realist, myself on there was kind of, and I thought, I'll try the Lifeline, and it's been fine. So
Okay.
But my travel bass, because everything's pinned down and I can't mess it up.
Yeah.
So.
What's your travel bass?
It is a David Gage bolt bass.
Okay.
With the removable neck.
Yeah.
And that is a lifesaver.
Yeah. Helps you get around a lot easier, I bet.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't even think about it,
Right. Yeah.
And if you're up in Sweden and you're doing trains and buses and stuff like that, I put it in the case and wheel it around, and it's no big deal.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So then the other record to this double set is What If? Talk about that one.
For me, I mean, it's just great tunes, and I got thinking about it, is there a connection, or is it just me picking tunes that I like? And the more I thought about it, it was really, I can't believe I'm saying this, but it was 25 years ago that my first CD came out with Ray Brown.
Okay.
That's a long time ago. It's amazing what happens when you're 4-year-old working with Ray Brown, right?
That's so did you study with him?
I did. I took a couple lessons. It all started when I was in San Diego for grad school. I had moved from Montana down to San Diego. And I mean, I was a huge Ray Brown fan.
Sure.
But, because of all my choral experiences and then coming into the bass out of the guitar, and because of being in vocal jazz ensembles, I fell in love with Ray because I loved Ella, and he was on her recordings, and then, Ray was married to Ella, and then Ray played with all these people.
Question, maybe you know the answer to this. I've read that they did a duo record together while they were married. Do you know anything about this record?
No, but if you find out something, I will
absolutely. Yeah, I know. I've talked to vocalists about it. I've talked to bass players about it. I forgot where I read about it, but clearly it must be out of print. But I've heard about it and cannot seem to find it anywhere. But it's been in the back of my mind for probably 15 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and every once in a while I get a hair and go searching around on the internet for it, and all eBay or whatever, seeing if anybody somewhere knows anything about this.
I do not know.
Yeah.
I can ask John Clayton. Maybe he would.
Yeah, he probably has like the masters to it or something.
Probably.
So you took a couple lessons with him in San Diego?
Yeah, and here's me, just coming in. I mean, I knew when I was 13 at a jazz camp, like, this is going to be my life.
Okay.
I'm going to be playing bass. I want to play jazz. This is it. I don't know what my life is going to look like, but I know this is it.
Yeah.
And so when I moved to San Diego to go to graduate school, I mean, I'd never really had bass lessons before. So it was just, I had been doing more electric playing and then studied with Bert Turetsky to get the classical stuff together. My master's program was basically 2 years just to get my technique together.
Mm-hmm.
And then I met Ray and got a lesson with him. And that first lesson I threw down. I just said, look, here's the deal. I love singing. I love playing my bass, not as much as you love playing your bass, but I want your life.
Sure.
I want to tour. I want to do a recording. I want to do educational outreach. I want to live your life.
Yeah.
And, my background, my bachelor's is in music education. I'm coming from Montana, and I know that I'm coming from being a little behind on the technique. But I mean, I had been listening to jazz, and singing along, and I had all my sing-alongs and everything. But I said, I want this life.
Yeah.
And I just need to know, be honest with me. Am I good enough? If I'm not good enough, I have other things that I can do, probably. But if I am good enough, tell me who I need to talk to, because I can't wait another minute.
Amazing. What was his response?
He just stared at me for a second. It was kind of like, all right. And I didn't even know. I mean, I think in a big way, I didn't even know what I was asking.
Sure.
I
Of
just
course.
wanted like just a little stamp of approval, like you're doing the right things. But he wrote down his address, gave it to me on a slip of paper, and said, "Send me your demo."
Did you have a demo?
I went home and we'd had a combo concert the week before, his concert in San Diego. And I just dubbed the cassette.
Okay.
That was my demo. That was what I did last as a gig. And
do you remember the tunes?
I do not even remember. Take the A Train was probably on it.
Sure.
I mean, just basic, UC San Diego was not a big jazz school.
Okay.
And
you were 13?
No, I was in graduate school.
Okay.
I was 22.
Okay.
And doing this, trying to get my own technique together, but I was also at that point, probably working on my master's recital. So, I mean, I was doing a lot of, I did Twisted for Ray in the room.
Okay.
I was working on Eddie Jefferson, John Hendricks. I love Lambert Hendricks and Ross stuff. So I was, really coordinating the walking lines with, my analyst told me that I was right out of my head, the way he described it. Yeah. Like all the beboppy tirade of stuff while just kind of just laying it down.
Yeah.
So he must have seen something in my efforts for him. So anyway, I gave him that cassette tape. I brought it to his concert that night because I didn't want to mail anything. And gave him the cassette, and he was like, "Oh, well, that's fast." I was like, "Well, I don't trust the mail service, so here you go. Give you something to listen to on your way back to LA." He looked at me, just kind of shook his head. And then 2 weeks later, I'm making tacos, not even thinking about it. Because he never actually said I was good enough. He never said I sucked. He just, he gave me his time.
Yeah.
And that to me was the validation.
So during the tacos, he called? What happened?
Oh,
during
yeah.
The tacos?
I'm making tacos. I'm just, do in the kitchen. My phone rings. I had a landline.
Yeah.
The landline rings. I answer, "Hello." And it's like, "Is Kristin there?" And I was like, "Who's this?" "Ray Brown." Whoa.
Yeah.
I never expected him to call, for heaven's sakes.
Sure. That's a surreal moment, isn't it?
Oh yeah. You know that tape you made? It's terrible.
Really?
But they liked you anyway. I'm thinking I didn't even know like he was, what label he was recording for. I was, he's like, "They liked you anyway. Want to make a record?" I was
wow. Okay.
So I had to audition for Telarc in Chicago.
Okay.
And I met Ray and Benny Green and Jeff Hamilton were in the trio at the time.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Well, just, you're going to audition at the Jazz Showcase. Just, put a plane ticket on your credit card and we'll reimburse you." I was like, "Mr. Brown, I don't even have a credit card."
Yeah.
I had nothing.
Sure.
I had no money in the bank. I was a grad student.
Yeah.
So he bought my plane ticket.
Okay.
He took care of everything, and I ended up doing 2 nights at the Jazz Showcase because the first night my nerves just sucked.
Yeah, I mean, that's so you're making a record with Ray Brown. Like how can anybody be, calm and collected, in their early 20s, trying to just get the jazz thing together. And now you're in the room making a record with the dude who is the standard for a bass player.
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah. It's in the audition, like at the Jazz Showcase, it's one of the, the best jazz clubs, one of the preeminent jazz clubs in the US. And you just fly in and you're just going to hit on a couple tunes, with the guys. And, it's one of those moments where you're standing on the stage and you feel the air moving from behind you for the first time.
Yeah.
And Benny in the sound check was like, "Hey, Ray, could you turn your amp up a little bit?" And he's like, "Oh, I haven't plugged it in yet." It's just like, and to feel that, I mean, it's one thing to sit in the audience, be in the front row and feel that. And it's another thing, like just to, it's like, I would imagine that it's like if you get up on the surfboard for the first time.
Right.
like the power of those waves and how do you stay on the board.
Yeah.
But yeah, so all the, and then there was no mic stand and I was supposed to play and sing a tune, just me.
What happened
And
there?
well, there was no mic stand, so Ray put his arm around me and held the microphone in front of my mouth. I was like, oh, for him, his whole thing is he's there to support me, so he's got his arm around me, and I'm just like, what the?
Yeah, what's happening? What's happening?
Yeah. So after the first night was over, Telearch people went away, and he said, "What about staying one more night and we just do it for us?"
Oh wow.
And I was like, "Can I practice on your bass?" Because I hadn't, I didn't know any other bass except for the school bass that I was borrowing.
Right.
So I was like, "Can I practice on your bass?" He said, "Well, you got to be to my hotel room before 8 a.m. because I'm going golfing." So I practiced the entire time he was golfing, and then we had lunch together, and he told me stories and, about his own feelings of moving to New York and all that stuff. And it was just like the second night, I was relaxed.
Sure.
I felt like, all right, we're just doing this for us. This is not to impress anybody. We're just going to make music together.
Well, and having that time to just connect with him personally and get lunch, get a little bit more centered on the bass and all that stuff. I mean, those things are all grounding.
Yeah, it made a huge difference.
Yeah, for sure.
And then after the recording was done, then, had a couple bass lessons with him and, still trying to process stuff. And, just there's things in those moments where I would say probably really basic things that kind of like blew my mind and have been like cornerstone pieces for the way I teach and the way I present material to other people.
What were those?
Well, for one thing, I felt like I was stupid and I couldn't remember our chord changes.
Okay.
I just couldn't do it. And then trying to transpose or playing something in another key, all of a sudden I just would be I was trying to do too much math vertically.
Yeah.
Like if I'm in C and I'm going to do something in E flat, okay, that's a minor third up. And then the next chord is what? Oh, it's an F. Okay, well, a minor third up from F would be.
Oh, so you're thinking about chord to chord, everything up.
And
interval.
I didn't, even though I have a degree in music education, there was no practicality in, the cycle, this is how things move. I mean, I know I read about it, but there was no practical application in the classes that said, let's go through the music
Right.
How does this all work together? And Ray was like, I was singing a song for him and he wanted me to do it in another key. And I just completely crashed and burned. And he was like, just turn the wheel. Turn the wheel? What are you doing? It's just, and he played the cycle, just turn the wheel. It's all, and I was like, what?
Yeah.
Is that all it is? And he didn't call me stupid and he didn't, put me down or a million things he could have done or said. And he didn't. Mm-hmm. He just said, this is all it is.
Right.
And for me, and I find surprisingly, especially with older players or people that have had other careers that want to come back into playing music, that's one thing they never got in their education. So they feel like, it's hard for me to remember tunes. It's hard for me to learn songs. It's hard for me to hear things. And all of a sudden they get this cycle in. I think education's gotten so much better with younger players that, they're getting out of high school knowing those things. But for older players that maybe have been struggling with this, all of a sudden it's just like the world is open.
Right. So when turning the wheel and thinking through the cycle, is that just thinking about the tune numerically?
No, I don't even. I'm just thinking, bass players, our basses are tuned in fourths.
Right.
So for me, I'm just going across the fingerboard.
Okay.
So E, A, D, G, flip the octave if you need to, and then C, F, flip the octave, B flat, E flat, A flat, flip the octave, D flat, G flat. So to move through things like in that direction. So I just think cycle for like if you're doing, what is this thing called love? Mm-hmm. Cycle for 3, da-da-da, ba-da, down a minor third, cycle for 3.
Okay.
Then you're starting in the same,
I got it. Okay.
And I'll do what I call pivot chords, so it changes the quality from major to minor, and then that as you cycle, then that moves you in the same thing.
Right.
So I'm not even thinking in terms of numbers.
Okay. You're just thinking about it in this moving the cycles then.
Yeah, it's the cycle broken up by what intervals.
Right.
Am I moving a tritone away, going into the bridge, or is it just the next chord in the cycle?
Right.
1 6 2 5. It's just root down a minor third, cycle until you're back home.
Right,
so the only interval you'd have to think about is that minor third down.
Yeah.
And then you do it so many times, you just go like, you don't even have to think about the 6th chord because you just know where that is.
Right.
So building those little blocks of things.
Interesting. I've never thought about it that way. Like I always just kind of think about it numerically. I think when I was, I don't know, in maybe high school, that's kind of like how I was instructed to learn them, so now I'll just think like, all right,
I get
whatever
too wrapped
the thing
up,
is.
Yeah, I just get too wrapped up in numbers, and then was that the subdominant of the?
Oh yeah.
Is that the 2 or the 5 or the 5 or the
7 diminished of 3? Well, what is that? Yeah.
So if I'm just thinking, I cycle for 1, down a half step, cycle until I get back home.
Okay.
And the distance between, when do I change to the next part of the cycle? It can be just, we've listened to music so much, if you just trust that the next chord is going to be the next one in the cycle.
Right.
Then you don't, it doesn't matter where you start.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously, as you know, you play enough standards, they're all so similar. They have these same reoccurring harmonic devices that show up. So it's like, okay, we're doing this thing. If you do like the minor, then the minor with the major 7 in the bass, so the minor 7, that little walk down thing. All right, we're doing that, and then we're going here. Got it. They become a lot more. They're easier to memorize and kind of get the sound of as you do more of them, because you start seeing all the same information over and over again.
Yeah.
That's. I think that's helpful.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What else do you focus on when teaching?
Well, it depends on if it's a bass player or a singer. I'm doing a workshop right now on K Nation, my little educational platform, for how to sing and play at the same time. So it's been interesting because some of the people that are in the course are coming more from the vocalist side that have picked up bass in the last few years and want to combine them. And then there's others that are coming much more from the bass side and want to be able to sing more.
Okay.
So there's 2 different sides of what needs to be built up.
Sure.
For those that are coming more instrumentally in, they're not used to using their voices.
Right.
So, how do you get that confidence in your melodies, your intonation vocally, and connect that with the bass? So
how do you teach feel? How do you teach to like still keep your playing on top and then like, mess with the phrasing vocally? How do you teach keeping one completely constant and moving the other one?
Open strings help. So take away anything that you would have to think about on the bass. So, if it's like a blues in D, that could be nice and easy. Sure. And then use a metronome. Try not to go too fast. And just keep, even just open roots just to start with.
And while singing.
Yeah, while singing.
Okay.
And it could be a scale. It could be a song that it could be, but how can you keep to that metronome thing?
Right.
Or maybe it's something like the Police, Every Breath You Take. Something that has kind of a simpler, it's roots, but it's a simpler set of chord changes that and are in a key that are comfortable for you. And then how can you mess with the melody around that?
Right.
And then I do a lot of toggling back and forth. So try it once or twice, just loop whatever that passage is. It's not even a full song, just one phrase or maybe it's going between 2 chords, maybe 3. Or if you're doing 1 6 2 5 progressions, just boom, dun, 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 dun. You can do all kinds of things on that. Yeah. You could sing a scale. You could do it on the beat. You could do it off the beat. You could, with a metronome going slow enough, just to keep making sure that your bass is really locking in with that.
Yeah. So you don't have students just dive into a tune by any means. They're practicing kind of merging these two ideas and then graduate into.
Yeah, then you move into songs.
Yeah.
You do, if you can do like chord progressions that would be applicable to a song, like a 1-6-2-5 is a really great way to do it. Or you take 4 chords in the cycle.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, if you think like spinning wheel, what goes up must come down. You go E, A, D, G, and you're back to E again.
Yeah.
So, you know, you can mess with that as much as you want. And that's a really good rotation. And then you move everything over one. So A, D, G, C.
Mm-hmm.
Then you mess with singing on that. I think part of the benefit of doing exercises or exploring the voice over really simple, small tidbits of bass material without doing a full song is it removes the need that we have to do something right or do it good. Or whatever the suck duck is like, what do you think you're doing? Right? Because if we all of a sudden we put it into a song and then we're like, oh, I don't sound, you know, this doesn't feel comfortable or that doesn't sound right, or I want this to be something else. If we can do it over some things where it's neutral material.
Right.
Then we can play and it's just exploration.
Right.
What does it feel like if I push this? What does it feel like if I lay back on this?
Yeah.
That to me is a lot nicer. And then all of a sudden you get into a song that you love. Then you can start playing like with the vocal elements of, instead of thinking about pulling back or pushing forward, what's your story?
Right.
What's your relationship with the lyric? You know, can you remove that lyric without the bass? Just do lyric without any rhythm, without any melody attached, and just say the story.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you? Are there words that taste really good?
Taste. I like that.
I loved it. Because then you just think, you know, like you're already smiling.
Yeah.
Because like, what would that taste be for you if a word tastes really good?
Yeah. I don't know what the word would be.
But what would the flavor be?
Oh. Who knows? I think it would depend on mood.
Yeah. And it could be, you know, anything from a piece of chocolate or cheesecake or a really good, you know, Cabernet or, you know, whatever.
So you took all these like really, you know, like very sophisticated culinary things. I'm thinking like meatball sub, you know.
Whatever it is that, and that's the beauty, whatever it is that makes you smile, whatever it is that when you think about, you take that first bite and you just go, oh, that's good. You know, what is the word in each phrase that makes you feel that way?
Do you think when selecting songs, is it the story? Is it how it feels to sing it? Is it both of those things?
It's a little bit of both, but there are songs that I love instrumentally that I look at the lyric and I just go,
Which ones are those?
Oh, it's been a long time since I've had some of those. Because usually I try to find a way that I can connect with it.
Okay.
And then I make an arrangement that kind of flips it around so it's...
So you just kind of reimagine the lyrical content?
I think of it as like if you have like any kind of object or like a comedian. You know, comedians take the most mundane things in the world and make us look at it from another perspective.
Sure.
So like if you take a song like Don't Get Around Much Anymore, which, I mean, if you've probably had a million experiences playing that song, do you remember one of those experiences that you go like, oh yeah, let's do Don't Get Around Much Anymore?
No, never.
No, right?
No. Yeah.
So it's a brilliant tune in that it's this really depressing lyric wrapped in happy music. What if you change it? You know, I missed the Saturday dance. I heard they crowded the floor. I just couldn't bear it without you. I don't get around much anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of
it's sad. So what if you're thinking like, okay, so what if like Ain't No Sunshine When She's Gone, kind of a groove.
Sitting on the dock of the bay. I think sitting on the dock of the bay is pretty dark. It's like just sitting there wasting time. Like it's a feel good. The music to that is like, it's a feel good, you know, kind of relaxing thing, it's a dark tune.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can, what about making it into a minor thing?
Sure.
Or changing the groove to bring out a different flavor,
Mm-hmm.
So like for me, like Don't Get Around Much, changing the melody because it starts on the major third, Miss a Saturday dance.
Right.
Heard they crowded the floor.
Yeah, make it more lamentful instead of da da da.
Yeah,
Right.
I couldn't bear it without you.
Yeah, I know, it's just like
I'm stuck in my house.
Yeah, right.
So I mean, I think there's ways. I'm trying to think if there's a tune anymore that I really. I mean, there's a lot of Rolling Stones tunes that I've looked at, and trying to think of the pop tunes of what would I want to do an arrangement of, and I just couldn't find.
Have you ever checked out a Radiohead tune called Fake Plastic Trees?
No.
That one, again, lyrically super dark. The track is not. I've always thought that one would be a fun one to write like a really dark arrangement to. I think I did at one point. I don't know what happened to it. With the vocalist I used to work with.
Okay.
Fake
Plastic Trees. I'll have to look into that.
Yeah, it's a very, it's talking about the. Also check out the music video. It's about how it's all there. Fake plastic. How fake everything is, basically. All of life. It's just fake plastic trees. But the music to it, it's major. It's like, what? This song is so dark.
Yeah.
I always wondered, though, if you go minor, is it too on the nose? Because always in my mind, when I hear songs like this, where like there's a juxtaposition between the lyrics and the chord changes, like, why did they do that? Mm-hmm. There has to be, why did they choose to do that? They knew what they were saying lyrically. So why come up with something that doesn't seem to completely coincide? I wonder if it's too on the nose.
It can be. I think it's maybe totally like contextual.
Let's like kind of ease up on this so it's not so heavy.
Yeah. But I think, like with regards to like the Duke Ellington, it's great to do it as a minor now because everybody's been so used to hearing it this other way for generations that just to do that, all of a sudden it's like you're really listening to the story now.
Right.
Instead of, thinking, that Mr. Saturday Night Dance tune.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Mr. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Kind of lame society thing.
Yeah. But, and then that's kind of cool too. Is there a song that would be maybe sad that you would want to move in another direction?
What would those be for you? Have you...
songs, there's I don't know if it's changing it from sad to happy necessarily. There's a jazz ballad. Well, I Surrender Dear was one of those that we did on Why Not? And that one typically is done as a ballad.
That's one of the ones I had to look up. That was I actually have questions about that one, honestly. Okay. Did you know about that song before you did this record? Because it was actually big in Denmark, bigger than it got in the States. It got to #1 in Denmark.
Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah. I listened to the original with Linda Scott. Completely different version.
Most of them tend to be really slow, very ballad. At least the versions that I listened to were just kind of like
doo-woppy.
I haven't heard that version.
Really? Are we talking about the same song? Did I mess up my own notes here? Hold on, let me.
I Surrender Dear? Because it's typically minor.
No. I did mess up my own notes. Have I told you? I've Told Every Little Star is the one I'm thinking of.
Oh, yeah. The
track before that.
Every little star, just how sweet I think you are. Yeah.
Yeah, the original was pretty campy.
That actually comes from Bruce Forman. Who I totally dug his arrangement. Wonderful guitar player. Loved his arrangement because I've played a bunch of gigs with him, and he's been on a project of mine, What's Your Story, that I did with Jeff Hamilton and Bruce right after I moved here. That's from, I think we recorded in 12 and it came out in 13.
Okay.
But Bruce, I love his arrangements because even though his wife sings, he's got the jazz arrangements that he does of some standards are so hip, he doesn't realize how well they work for vocals.
Mm.
But then, of course, when I play it with him, then he realizes how much I've actually changed his thing because he can't play it the same way. So it's interesting because I feel like in my head, it's like, oh, you know this song, you did the arrangement, and then we play it. He goes, you've changed things. I was like, did I? I don't know.
Uh-oh.
I didn't think I did.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just thought it was so great because it extracts that in a whole other way.
Yeah. But so back to I Surrender, Dear. That's the one. That's what you're talking about before I hijacked it with misinformation. You were saying about.
But that one tends to be such a ballad, like this I Surrender, it's almost just kind of like, oh, I surrender, dear, kind of this kind of, way.
You should do a version in that character right there. Just some Southern belle that's completely defeated.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
But for me, and maybe it's just like life personal experiences coming in and going, well, it's not always, surrender doesn't have to be this, oh, well, I guess, or this sad thing. It could be, like this tension release or this game. Mm-hmm. We played the game of Stay Away. Well, what could that be? Could it be a little, like kind of cat and mouse? Could it be, like I think about a little bit like with my husband, he's such a cool guy. Mm-hmm. He's kind, he's funny, he's a great hang. And like when we met, I've had friends that called me a blowfish because I wasn't used to being treated in that way. Mm-hmm. Like he was totally patient. And every time he'd be so amazing, I'd be like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah, what the other shit gonna drop?
And I'd be like a blowfish that, goes, when it gets nervous, it's and then puffs out and gets all the pricklies and all that. So, so what if it's kind of this cat and mouse, a little prickly, a little, and then thinking, like with what Mounus and Snore bring to the game, you could totally do that kind of Bach-ish chase sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And like, do you hint at the music being fast and then you kind of, not necessarily surrender into it, but open up into this bigger thing where it's just more embracing. So surrender isn't giving up.
Right.
But the surrender is allowing yourself to go into this other space.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's.
What's your, does each song kind of come from this? Well, hold on. That question was going to be lame. How much time do you spend researching? Once you've picked a song, you're like, okay, I'm going to do something with this. How often or how much time typically do you dive into them to extract what you want to get out of it? Do some come more natural than others, or are you always looking for like some untold story in the song somewhere?
I think a lot about the lyrics.
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily listen to a bunch of other arrangements. I Surrender, Dear, I kind of wanted to see, like, is this always done as a ballad?
Right.
Because my feeling was that it always had been done that way. Other songs, like Copacabana, I did some research, like, does everybody do the Barry Manilow, like Barry Manilow, and pretty much?
Yeah. That's kind of, some of those songs are just so quintessential. Like they have such a quintessential version, that it's hard not to reckon with that somehow.
Yeah. And so then for me, sometimes what I'll do for inspiration is like on a road trip or a drive somewhere, I'll listen to anything but that song. And I'll listen to music that I don't normally listen to. Mm-hmm. For the Copacabana thing, I was listening to a group called Four Wheel Drive with Nils Landgren, the Swedish trombonist, with a bunch of European. It's on ACT. And they were doing some pop covers in their own jazz way. And just listening to that, listening to Cecilia Norby, who was, she's a Danish singer. Her husband, Lars Danielsen, is a badass bass player.
Okay.
Super badass.
Nice.
He's so wonderful. Really, really creative, and she's a wonderful singer. And I was just listening to kind of how different people work together
Yeah.
in not necessarily the straight ahead thing.
Sure.
And in listening to that and just kind of staring out the window, knowing that here's a song I want to find something
Right.
with, and thinking about the story and what would represent that well. And
Yeah.
then typically by the time I get home, it's like, all right. I mean, I couldn't draw like a direct line between
Sure.
one thing or another, but it's almost like patchwork quilt sort of stuff. Like one thing kind of remotely reflects this, which goes to there, which makes me think about this and maybe something from my childhood. And then all of a sudden it's like, I know what I'm going to do.
Is that a place that like an alone time space where you get to think about these things that's pretty fruitful, like going on road trips or drives? I go on drives a lot to clear my head, and then I always seem to come back with like the best idea ever.
Yeah,
You know,
it's
you're
either
like-
that or a walk in the forest sometimes, because we've got literally the forest is right across the street here.
Oh, that's amazing.
So yeah, it's so cool.
Yeah.
So to do like a walk in the forest was, the power of love. That
Yeah.
was one walk, and I wasn't even thinking about that song when I left the house. So sometimes those things come quick. Sometimes it's a deadline followed, like, oh, the concert's in a week and I have no arrangement. Copacabana, I was on that for 6 months and I had no ideas.
Really?
We were coming home from a gig and I was like, when I get home, I'll write the guys and just say, I'm really sorry, I don't have anything.
Yeah.
And then on that drive home, I just kind of surrendered into it wasn't going to happen. And I just thought, I'm just going to listen to a bunch of stuff
Yeah.
and not worry about the song. And all of a sudden, there it was.
Bada
So,
boom.
yeah.
Yeah.
So deadlines are also a good thing.
Yeah, that's a great motivator, right?
Yeah.
What else? What do you got coming up?
I am actually back into gig world.
Nice.
So Denmark, as of tomorrow, is officially reopened. So I have a gig on Friday with Blonde Bass,
Okay.
with Helle Marstrand and Ida Wild, 2 singing bass players.
Wow.
And yeah, so we're going to play on Friday. And in Denmark, the month of February is winter jazz.
Okay.
And so there's a bunch of concerts. I'll actually be going up to Sweden next week with my trio. And
How far away is it?
the town we're going to, I think, is like an hour and a half away. But
That's
I
not
mean,
bad.
you can be in the Sweden's just, maybe in 45 minutes from where I live.
Yeah.
So it's just across the bridge.
Yeah.
So
Nice.
piece of cake.
Yeah, that's quicker than me going to Pasadena.
Oh yeah.
Like-
Depending on traffic.
Yeah, exactly. It's 2 hours for me to get to the other side of the same city.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's not so bad. You can just be in another country here.
Yeah, I know. And I think that's hilarious.
It's crazy. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love it. So
Cool.
yeah, gigs. I love it.
Yeah. And then you got some stuff. Are you doing a tour with these records? Are you going to be touring anytime soon? You still working that out?
The
It seems like an
pandemic.
interesting time to be booking tours, or because everybody's still got their own rules about it a little bit.
Yeah, and I think part of the challenge, at least in Europe right now, that I'm seeing is that because things were like closed and then open and then closed and then open again.
Yeah.
Because of that, everybody the first round was so excited to book gigs, like we're open, and then booked the next 6 months, and then things were closed for 3 months. Well, then that moved other stuff over. I don't know why that's me. So it moved
I thought the
everything
beep was
over.
me. I was like,
Nope.
what's going on?
Sorry about that.
No, that's fine.
So it moved everything over. Like, the people moved the gigs, which is
Yeah.
great because they didn't just cancel. They just said, well, we'll do
That
this
is
when
good.
it opens up again. Well, and then things open up, and then, let's book more gigs. So, and then things close down again. So then those things are also moved.
Yeah.
So right now, just to even book anything, it's like we're looking at fall of 23
Wow.
here.
Wow.
It's crazy. I mean, there's still some things that'll come in at the last minute or within the next 6 months, but it's really weird,
Yeah.
and I'm working on, I've got August of this year, and then I'm thinking March of next year. to be back in the U.S. for some gigs.
Okay.
So I'm in the process now of trying to line up venues and what regions would that be. I'm thinking.
Do you mainly just hit the coasts? Do you do like a run up the East Coast and a run up the West Coast?
I've never really done an official East Coast tour.
Okay.
I've always been kind of a little more of a West Coaster.
Yeah.
But I've done some Midwest stuff before. I would really like to branch into East Coast and Midwest.
Yeah.
Like that Chicago corridor, Chicago, Minneapolis
Okay, sure.
kind of a thing. I do have people there that I know are interested in hearing me. So
Yeah.
I'm looking at those things. I don't know why March would be the month that I would do that. It seems like not my best. It would be better in some ways. It would be better to do that in August, but I'm a little concerned with festivals and stuff in that part of the country because those are booked already.
Okay.
So
August of 22 is booked already.
I'm guessing festivals, some of those things. But LA, I know I can always get some stuff. I think there's some stuff up in the Seattle area.
Mhm.
Some of those things up the coast that would be a little more open.
Sure.
Because I already have those relationships.
Sure. Maybe
But,
dip over into Colorado or something.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a kind of a scene there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'd like to do that. I've got a bite possibly for March of next year, which is why I'm thinking March in Salt Lake City area.
Okay.
So if I did that, then it would make sense to do, go up into Idaho, Montana, and then
Those are just
Colorado.
places that don't kind of hit my jazz radar.
But the audiences are really passionate there.
Really? Really?
There's festivals, there's schools, there's educational outreach.
Okay.
There's a whole, Denver has some venues,
Sure.
but there's also, schools that do a lot of, workshops and things like that. So, and then
Great.
there's some house concerts because homes are bigger there.
Yeah, that's true.
And the house concert thing, like in Montana, is so cool.
Yeah.
It's these really amazing, intimate, 80 people in a living room,
Right.
which maybe pandemic-wise, that's not the brightest idea. That's why I'm thinking 23 for that. But, we got to think ahead. We have to keep marching on it.
I think so. It's better than we were, right? Things are moving ahead.
Absolutely.
So that's good news. That's good
Yeah.
news. Kristin, thanks so much for doing this.
Thank you so much. This
Absolutely.
was really fun.
It was. Keep me posted. Keep me posted when you're coming to the States. And if you got new stuff coming out, let me know.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks. Have a good one.
You too.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. That was my chat with Kristin Korb. I always love hearing stories about Ray Brown and the fact that Kristin got to connect with him like she did and record with him. That's huge. Again, Kristin's latest recordings are Why Not and What If. Do yourself a favor. And go check those out. Also, do yourself a favor. Check out that cookbook. I'm going to have links to all this up, thebasshed.com/podcast /Kristin Korb. I'm going to have a specific link up to the cookbook. I don't know why I'm having so much fun with this. Yeah, I'm all about this cookbook right now. So check that out. Check out the records, the new records she has out, and check out her previous records as well. And you know what I'm about to say. I'm going to talk about that cookbook.